Welcome to Season 4 of Design Together, a podcast about how designers work together. This season, we'll be focusing on folks who are just in the first few years of their careers. We'll call it Starting Out. My name is Abby Guido, and I am your host. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. As you all know, this season, we're focusing on starting out. So those first few years after you finish college or switch careers and you find yourself as a designer. Today, I have with us Frank White. Frank is currently a graphic designer at Comcast Spectator. Hey, Frank, thanks for being here today.
Hey, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, Frank. So we are going to go back. We're going to think about when you came to college and what you were looking for when you were looking for a university to attend and how you found design.
Yeah. So when I graduated high school, I went to Delaware County Community College. I was actually a liberal arts major for my first year just because I really had no idea what I wanted to do. So I figured just kind of get general education, kind of take a little bit of everything, see what sticks. And after my first year, I switched to their graphic design program. I never really had an interest in graphic design or arts or anything like that beforehand. But my senior year of high school, I took a intro to graphic design class with a bunch of friends just because we heard it was an easy class and we were seniors. So obviously we were going to take it.
I love the honesty, Frank.
And yeah, in that class, we just learned a bunch of we learned how to do face swaps and I'd change the color of sneakers and just fun stuff like that. So after my first year of college, when I was trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do, I remembered that class, how much fun it was. So I was like, you know what, it's worth a shot. And if I don't like it, it's just community college. I can switch to something else if it doesn't work. But I loved it. Had some great professors, had some awesome classes, learned a lot. And then after 2 years in the program at Delaware County Community College, I transferred to Temple and their Tyler School of Art. Almost exclusively on the recommendation of all the professors at Delaware County. They all said Temple and Tyler School of Art, that's the go-to for the area, for Philadelphia area. And
you believe them.
How I made my decision. Yeah.
So did you actually get an associate's degree from Delaware County?
Yes, I did.
You did. And had you always planned on continuing on to get a 4-year degree, or were you just kind of waiting it out and seeing what happens?
The plan was always to get a 4-year degree. Okay. Again, when I first went to college, I didn't know what it was going to be in. So took some time to figure it out and it worked.
So you come over to Tyler, and how's your experience in design there?
It was a lot different than what I was used to. It was a lot tougher. It was a lot more work than community college, clearly. But the group of students I was with, all the professors, it was very welcoming as well, which was a huge thing. Especially for me, I didn't feel like I really fit in too well with all the people who had been interested in art their whole lives growing up and who'd draw really well and always knew that this is what they wanted to do. I felt kind of new to it all still. So just to be welcomed by everyone, professors, faculty, students, all across the board, it was a really great experience.
It's really interesting. I'll let the audience know that I know Frank well, and Frank was a student of mine. And I don't know if I ever realized that you were not the kid who grew up drawing. So I'm kind of surprised to hear this as well.
Yeah, I still can't draw to save my life.
but sketchbook is. But you're a great designer, so you make it work.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely make it work. But yeah, my sketchbook is just random doodles that make no sense and a lot of notes, really.
Awesome. I mean,
a lot of gibberish in there.
I grew up drawing, but I will say that my sketches are hard for other people to understand. So I can relate to that. Awesome. So while you were in school, did you have any type of internship or did you work at all in design?
Yeah. So while I was in college, I had a part-time job as a junior graphic designer. I was for a eyeglass manufacturing company. I actually worked there while I was in high school, just as a part-time job because, that's what you did. And then while I was at community college, the company hired a graphic designer to do a bunch of stuff in-house for them. So I went to my boss. I'm like, hey, I'm going to school for graphic design. Would it be possible for me to switch departments and kind of work under them, kind of learn how it works? And my boss was awesome. They said yes, switched me right away. So it was kind of an internship, but it wasn't like labeled as one. So
Did you do that throughout your whole time at both Delco and when you came to Tyler?
yeah, so it was after my first semester as a graphic design major at community college is when I made the switch.
Mm-hmm.
So my last year there, or last year and a half at Delaware County, and then my full time at Tyler School of Art, I was working there. With the exception of my senior year at Tyler, just because the workload and scheduling just didn't really have time to continue that job. So I kind of stopped it there.
Do you think that having that job and having the experience of working, in a company or junior designer, you're still in school, do you think that impacted your experience in school? Like, were you learning things on that job that you were able to bring into the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing was it just allowed me to really learn the programs like Photoshop and Illustrator, like and InDesign, like learn them really well outside of what we were being taught in school. So it was just a different perspective and someone with a completely different background, like just kind of showing me how to do things that I never would have figured out on my own, or maybe wouldn't have even thought to ask someone, how do I do this or how do I do that?
Sure. Like without knowing what's capable, sometimes you don't even know the right questions to ask.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was pretty cool to have that like second point of view of like learning, like just separate from school.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell my students and sometimes my colleagues too, like, we can show you the quote unquote right way of doing something, meaning you're building a file that someone else can then take and use, or that it's production ready and that it's, CMYK if it's going to print, all those things. But the truth is, as a student, when you're working on your own projects, you can kind of build it however you need to just to make it work. And there's a big difference when you're professionally working and there's other folks on the team and that you have to be able to collaborate with them. And so I get what you're saying about different ways of using the software for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So you stopped working the senior year. You're focusing your senior year on your work, your portfolio, and what's next. What kind of support did you receive to kind of help prepare you to look for that job and to figure out where you wanted to be ultimately?
Oh, all the professors at Temple and Tyler School of Art were fantastic. Everyone had connections to someone and like had their own experiences as a designer. And so basically every professor I would ask had a different like suggestion on where to look for jobs, who to reach out to, kind of how to build my portfolio if I wanted to focus on, like if I wanted to end up being a UX UI designer, like there were great professors giving feedback on how to tailor my portfolio that way, or if I wanted to be a print designer, like it was really great having all those different point of views and all the different kind of perspectives, I guess, to learn from.
No, I'm so happy to hear you say that, because I think sometimes we kind of all fall to the like, well, there's this person, I respect them and they said this is the way, so it has to be the one way. And I like how you put that it's all different perspectives and that you appreciated getting all these different perspectives so that you had different options that you could explore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as a kid in college, even if I thought I knew what I wanted to do, I wouldn't really know by myself how to get there. So having people that have done it before and have been designers for years and worked in the industry, it's so valuable. It's really can't take away from that.
So you graduated. Did you know what type of job you were going to look for?
Absolutely. My senior year, I focused like not all my projects, but my biggest project my senior year, I created a NHL like expansion team branding because I knew I wanted to get into the sports industry. I've always been a huge sports fan, very passionate about hockey and football and stuff like that growing up. So I wanted to break into the sports industry as a designer, so that way I could kind of combine what I love doing with something else I'm passionate about. So by the time I was ready to graduate and was getting all my like portfolio and stuff like that together, I really focused heavily on the sports branding and sports design. And I started looking at teams in the area that were hiring, and not just teams. Like I was also looking at like ESPN, for example. Like they're not a team, but they do sports. Like,
sure. And there's like sports apparel companies and there's a lot of...
Exactly. So that's kind of where I was focusing on applying to and stuff like that fresh out of school.
So that initial search, did it turn up anything?
No, not really. Especially that initial search. As you already know, but I graduated in 2020. COVID hit halfway through my last semester, and everything got shifted to remote. So it was really hard to find a job in that time for me. It just seemed like everywhere that was hiring had so many more options because everyone could work from home. So they were getting highly skilled applicants that just never would have been able to apply for certain jobs and things like that. And as a kid fresh out of school, I really only had my school work to kind of show off who I was, and just didn't work out for me those first couple months.
Was that tough?
Oh yeah, it was real tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, I don't remember the name of the company, but there was an like college esports like league or something like that. I applied to them, had a couple rounds of interviews. I got really excited about that one. It seemed like such a great fit. The team, at least the members I got to talk to on that team, all seemed like such cool people, such great designers. And I think I was like one of the last 2 or 3 people, and they let me know they went with someone else, and that was just heartbreaking for me because I was so close to getting such a cool job, and it just didn't happen.
So what was ultimately your first full-time design job out of school?
So the first full-time job was with a toy packaging company, in just outside of Philadelphia. I was a junior packaging designer. I got to work with a lot of they're like boy brand toys, so like Star Wars, Micro Machines, Nerf.
So still sounds pretty fun.
Oh yeah, it was a great job, great experience.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the interview process for that job?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember how the interview process went?
So while I was still looking for a job, I got an email from you. Well, as not everyone knows, but I had you for a bunch of classes at Temple, Tyler School of Art. And after graduation, you emailed me saying, "Hey, I know this person that's looking for a junior designer." And so I emailed them my resume, my portfolio, email like, "Hi, I'm looking for a job. Here's my work." It was much more professional than that, but it's the gist of it. They got back to me probably 2 or 3 weeks after I sent in my information saying, "Hey, we really like your work. We'd like to set up a quick Zoom interview with you. When are you available?" So we set that up, and I met with the senior designer for the brands that I'd be working under, and the creative director. We had probably like a 30-minute Zoom interview, just kind of general interview stuff, like what are your strengths, weaknesses, tell us about yourself.
Did you show any work during that interview, or they already saw your work, so you didn't actually walk through anything?
I walked through a few of my projects. Yeah.
Okay.
I remember one of the projects I shared was it was a project I did for a packaging design class in college. It was like a language game for kids to try to teach them like a second language was the premise of it. And I chose like some Star Wars, like alien languages.
So
like
it kind of was perfect.
Exactly. So I got to show them a Star Wars toy project that I already did. So that way they could kind of see where I'd be coming from in terms of work I'd be doing for them. So just having that project to kind of walk there and show was pretty cool.
And then, do you remember, you don't have to give detailed numbers if you don't want, but do you remember the negotiation for your salary and benefits? Were you able to negotiate it all, or was it just like, here's the deal, Frank, take it or leave it?
Yeah. So I think it was probably like 3 weeks after the interview, they emailed me saying they wanted me and here's the offer. And I didn't even try to negotiate. I saw what they offered. I'm like, yes, I'll take it. First design job, let's go. Which maybe isn't the smartest thing, but
yeah, I think a lot of people jump on things, and I'll take this moment just to remind anyone listening that, you are bringing something to the table. And so it never hurts to ask.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
and that's just something you gain with experience and confidence. You just feel better about talking about money. But money is what this is all about. That's what the companies are trying to do. And so talking about it is something that they're very used to. And so I just like to remind people that there's nothing wrong with asking if there is, if they're open to negotiating your benefits, your salary, whatever it might be. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So you're there, you're happy, and what happens next?
So I'm there for about 6 months, and then I'm on LinkedIn one day, and I see a job posting with Comcast Spectator, who's the company that owns the Philadelphia Flyers, who are my favorite sports team all time, diehard Flyers fan.
Yeah, and I'll just say, if anyone wants to picture Frank, often coming to class in his full Flyers gear too. So we all knew where your love was.
Yeah, like half the shirts in my closet are Flyers orange. So
yeah,
wasn't really trying to hide it. So I see that they're hiring for a junior graphic designer. Obviously, I apply for it. A few weeks later, I get an email from the senior designer saying they want to set up a quick phone call just to kind of gauge my interest, see if they think I'd be a good fit, things like that.
I'm going to pause you here because I remember a step you missed. I saw the job too, Frank.
Yes, you did. You sent it to me on LinkedIn.
And I remember you had a little bit of hesitation. So talk about that a little bit, because I want people to hear that, because I think it's important. I don't want to say you struggled to find a job, but you graduated in a time that was a little tough. And I'm sure you were very happy to be employed, and it sounds like you liked what you were doing. So what was going through your head when you saw the job at first?
So one of the biggest things I thought was, like, I had just started this new job. Like you said, I liked it. It was a lot of fun, great people. But I was kind of hesitant because I just started here. I'm just starting to get my feet wet. It's my first design job. Like, I thought it was going to be a bad look and it looked bad on my resume. And I kind of felt bad about potentially leaving this company when I just started, and like they were just like kind of starting to let me like design. Like they were really starting to trust me with projects and things like that.
Sure. It takes a little while for onboarding to happen and to kind of get to the level of where you're able to take on projects by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the first probably 2 months. It was really just me learning how their company works, what kind of projects I'd be working on, kind of seeing the process from start to finish for projects. So it was like I said, it was probably that 3 or 4 month mark where they started to trust me with projects, just because I was finally getting comfortable there. And then, like I said, I felt bad because I was starting to look at this other new shiny job, and it was just a really conflicting kind of back and forth.
But ultimately you decided.
Yes, ultimately I decided to apply and go for it. Well, I applied before I made up my mind on if I would accept or not. That was a no-brainer. But I do remember talking with you and a lot of people close to me, like this exact same conversation. Like, hey, I just started here. Would it be kind of like a bad look to jump ship already? But yeah, ultimately I decided to apply and continued forward with that, and clearly it's working out so far.
So you talked to the senior designer. How long from the initial applying for that job to actually making the switch?
I think I applied at some point early June of 2021, and I think I started at the end of August.
Okay.
So roughly 2 months from applying to my first day.
And did it take that long for them to offer you the job, or did you ask them for extra time before you started?
So I did 2 interviews in between applying and them offering. There was the quick phone call I had, just 10 minutes. They kind of went over the job. And then a week or 2 went by, and then they brought me in for an in-person interview. And then another few weeks, and they made the offer. And then I took a few days to consider it, then accepted, and then started, I think, 2.5 weeks later.
Okay. Did they like your expansion team project?
I think so. They seem to enjoy it. I was definitely one of the ones I walked through during our interview.
I'm sure. So this is definitely a recurring theme with everyone I've been talking to this season, and I think it's pretty common these days. Are not staying at a job for 2 to 5 years at your first job, but kind of finding the right fit, and sometimes having to make a jump fairly quickly. And so I've asked others this question. I'm going to ask it to you. How did it feel to have to go into this new job and say, "Hey, I love it here, but I found something that my dream job and I have to take it." How did that go?
I was so nervous to do it. I never really quit a job before. Like I talked about earlier, the job I had in college, I stopped working my senior year, and that was more of I didn't quit. I would just talk to my boss. I'm like, hey, I don't really have time this semester. Can I just kind of put a pause on that until after college? And then COVID hit and ended up being laid off from that, so I didn't actually quit. So this is my first time quitting a job, and it was a job I was just recently at. It was really, really nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks too, because at the time we were still hybrid. So I was only in office, I think 2 days a week was what it was. So when I gave my 2 weeks, it was when everyone was work from home for that day. So I had to talk to the senior designer I was working under. I had to tell him via Zoom that I was going to be putting in my 2 weeks, which isn't ideal, but is kind of how it had to happen.
How was the response from the folks there?
They were sad to see me go. They were excited that I was there. They liked the work that I was doing. But overall, they were very supportive. They were very happy that I was pursuing my dream. It was cool too, because the creative director at the time, as soon as I told him, he's like, if there's anything we can do to keep you, more money, more work from home days, anything we can do to keep you, please let me know. I'm like, I just can't. I'm sorry. Can
you be the Flyers?
Exactly.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the Flyers. So what's it been like there?
It is a lot busier than I thought it was going to be, honestly. It's also not just the Flyers too, which is something I knew once the interview process started, but going into the application, I didn't really expect that. So technically I'm an employee of Comcast Spectator, which is a division of Comcast that owns the Philadelphia Flyers, the Philadelphia Wings, which is the lacrosse team. They own the Wells Fargo Center, which is the arena they play in. And then they have a bunch of other junior hockey teams, esports leagues, stuff like that this one company owns all of that. But we focus on the Flyers, the Wings, and the Wells Fargo Center. So we're doing design work for all three of those.
So that you didn't know until you started talking to them more about what the position was.
Yeah, and it was in the job description that it was kind of spanned all three of them, but clearly it's mostly the Flyers, and the job description said I don't think it gave a break. I think it might have been when I was interviewing, but they said 80% of the work is Flyers, and then there's a bunch of Wings and arena design work that needs done.
Does that seem accurate to what you're doing?
Yeah. So it is primarily focused on the Flyers, and then a lot of the stuff we do for the arena isn't really us creating anything new. It's more so concerts and events that come in that already have their artwork. We just need to resize it and create billboards, paid social ads, stuff like that. So while there is a lot of that, it's not really that hard of a project to do or anything like that. And then with the Wings, it's just the NLL is the league they play in. It's not a huge league. It's nowhere on the same level as the NHL or NBA or anything like that. So it's just a smaller scale.
Got it. So when you are working on work for the Flyers, what type of work are you doing?
So it's a lot of marketing material, emails, paid social ads, billboards, brochures, things like that. A lot of the stuff that you really don't think about when you think about designing for a sports team. At least I didn't. I always see all the cool stuff on social media and the the game day graphics and the posters and like the milestones, things like that. That's honestly such a, not a small part, but it's a lot smaller than I expected it to be.
So you're doing that work as well.
Yeah.
Got it.
But on a day-to-day basis, it's emails, billboards, paid social ads, whatever other random marketing needs pop up.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty common at most design jobs, is that we get to see all the sparkly things that get put out there, and there's also the like internal presentation templates that have to be made, and all the other design needs are still there.
Yeah, and of course they're not gonna like use that as a selling point for the interview. Like when I asked them what kind of work they were doing, like they didn't say, "Oh yeah, we have a lot of emails." Like no, it's, oh, we get to do all the cool like social media stuff. We get to do patches for the jerseys, and they sell you on the fun stuff, of course.
Of course. And so since you've been there, you were hired as a junior designer, and now you're a graphic designer. Can you talk a little bit about when that happened?
Yeah. So as you said, I was hired as a junior designer. That was August of 2021. Went through my first season, October to April or May, whenever the season ended. And then after the season ended, we did our post-season reviews. I talked to our creative director, and she said, "This is one of the easiest decisions I have to make. We want to offer you a position of graphic designer, bump you up from junior, comes with a pay raise." And I was like, "Yeah, obviously I'm going to accept that."
That's great. And I know from just talking to you outside of here that you also go to the games. So tell us a little bit about that part of your job.
We have a team of 4 designers currently. One of us has to work every Flyers game, home and away. So we kind of just rotate. We have a rotating schedule of who does it. When I'm on as the graphic designer, it's just keeping the social media templates, updating them with the current game going on, updating the score, updating the other team's logos if we're playing, dropping in photos from the current game to keep it recent, getting the social media, like starting lineup graphic, getting all that kind of together. We have a whole like game day package we run through. So that's what I do as a designer during the games. And then on the days where I'm not scheduled as a designer, for the home games at least, I work with the social media team to take photos and videos of the team, of the fans and stuff like that.
Is that something you had experience in before photography?
Not at all. That was just something I wanted to learn more because, like I said before, I'm a huge Flyers fan. So I wanted to be at every home game, and I wanted to find something creative I could do at the home games to like justify me being there outside of just being a fan.
Sure.
And it's just a good way to build more skills for me. It makes me a little more well-rounded, I guess is the word. But yeah, that's not a requirement for my job. That's just something I went out of my way because it's something I wanted to do. I wanted to learn some photography, some social media, stuff like that.
Well, I got to go to a game last week. Frank was nice enough to invite me and my husband and my kids, and we were sitting right behind Frank while he was taking his photos, and it was really special for me to get to watch you do that. And I really appreciate it, and I hope my thank you of the photo of Gritty's ass sticking up next to you was a good one.
It's going to be my new profile picture on everything.
Well, Frank, thank you so much. I'm going to ask you one more question before we go. And that is, what advice do you give to the folks that are just graduating from school or transitioning into design as they begin this journey? So my biggest advice would just be to not take it too personally if a company doesn't make an offer to you. It's like you're fresh out of school. You have all the time in the world to get a job. Just maybe take some time, just enjoy yourself, kind of decompress after graduating. I know it's a grind to get there, so got to focus on yourself. Well, thank you so much, Frank.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all so much for listening. We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to send us a message or leave us a review. To learn more about the show, check out our website at designtogetherpod.com. Special thanks to Rob Weston at Great Magnet Recording Concerns for providing our post-production.